Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabby and today we're going to be doing a reading vlog where I read your thriller recommendations. I think this is my third time doing a round of reading your thriller recommendations, so I'll have the previous two that I've done linked down below. But you know, as someone who reads thrillers pretty frequently, I think it's really fun for me to get recommendations from you all. And if you missed it, over on my community tab here on YouTube, I did ask for some thriller recommendations kind of towards the beginning of August, I think. And you guys came through with so many incredible recommendations. I ended up choosing 4 books to read for this video, but honestly, I could do an entire round 2 with how many amazing recommendations that I got, so thank you so much to everybody who sent in a recommendation. Before we do jump into the reading vlog and all of the books that I'm going to be reading for this video, I just wanted to take a second to thank today's video sponsor, which is Factor. Because if you're too busy to cook this fall, but you still want to make sure that you're eating well, then Factor might be the perfect thing for you because you can skip that extra trip to the grocery store and you can skip all of the prep and the cleanup and the messiness and the time that comes with cooking, and you can still get the nutritional quality that you need with Factor's meals. Their meals are delivered right to your door and they are fresh, never frozen meals. And the great thing is that they're ready in just 2 minutes. You just throw this in the microwave, you put it in for 2 minutes, and then you eat the food and it's amazing and you can go back to living your life. You don't have to worry so much about what's for dinner. You can choose from over 34 plus weekly meals to choose from, so you're never going to be having the same thing all the time. They also have an assortment of 45 plus different add-ons, including some breakfast items, or if you're looking for an easy wellness boost, they have some really nice beverage options as well, like cold pressed juices, shakes, and smoothies. My personal favorite thing about Factor is definitely the convenience with how little of time I have to put the effort in with making food. Because I'm a very busy person, I like to stay on top of my to-do list, and Factor makes dinner so much easier. Exciting news as well is that Factor is now owned by HelloFresh, so with such a wide variety of food options to choose from, there really is something for everyone. I personally really do love switching between the two brands, and now you can as well with a discount through me. So you can head to factor75.com or use the link down below and you use my code gabbyreads50 for 50% off your first box with Factor. Isn't that such an amazing deal? Go to factor75.com, use my code gabbyreads50 and get 50% off your first box. What an incredible deal. Thank you so much to Factor for sponsoring today's video. And now let's jump into the books. Alright, so the first thriller recommendation that I got from you that I'm going to be reading for this video is Blood Sugar, and this is a recommendation that I got from Angela. Her comment said, "Blood Sugar, this book is very similar to They Never Learn by Lane Fargo and totally worth a read." And this comment got 24 thumbs up, and it even had a few responses that were saying, "I agree," or like, "I second this." And this is one that I am very excited to read because I actually do own this book. It's been on my physical TBR for a while, so I always love when that happens, when I can actually get to a book that I already own. Blood Sugar is a book that I have been really excited about because I think the protagonist is a female serial killer, which is why I think she compared it to They Never Learn by Lane Fargo, and it sounds like it's going to be really interesting. I don't know too much about it, but I do know that my friends Katie and then also my friend Haley, I'm pretty sure, really loved this book, so I'm excited to give it a shot. The next book that I'm going to be reading for this video is this one called How I'll Kill You, which this is a new thriller that just published this year, and this recommendation came from this comment. They said it's about female triplets who are also serial killers. It's got a great family element, a romance subplot, and an overall crazy good time. And I'm so excited to finally be getting around to this book because this is a book that I was debating reading earlier this year, but I just never got around to it. And I have heard a few of my friends really enjoying this one as well, and so I'm so excited because I love the idea of a premise where we're following 3 sisters who are triplets and they're all murdering their boyfriends. Like, what the heck? It just sounds like it's gonna be a really fun time, so I can't wait to jump into this one. I was able to get a copy of this from my library, by the way, which is great. The next book I'll be reading for this video is The Girls Are Also Nice Here by Lori Elizabeth Flynn, and this is another one that I was able to get my hands on this book from the library, which is so exciting. This one published either this year or last year. Oh, it actually looks like it published in 2021. So this one's been out for a couple years now. I don't really know how I missed it. I feel like I saw some of the buzz for this book when it was initially coming out, but then I just didn't hear much about it after that. This recommendation came from this comment from Isabella. She said, "The Girls Are Also Nice Here. This one is excellent. I think you'll love it since you loved In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, and it has the kind of twist that you love." So I was very excited to hear this book get compared to one of my faves, In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. because that one definitely has the kind of like college setting and the like friends, like something happened like years ago and something's happening again, and so it's like a reunion on a college campus. And I don't know too much about this book, but I do have a feeling it has a similar plot to In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. I do think it takes place on a college campus and there's like some kind of reunion happening, so I am very excited to read this one. And then the last book that I'm going to be reading for this video is going to be The Venue by TJ Payne, and this is one that I actually have been seeing around a little bit on the internet and I've been very curious about it. This recommendation came from this comment from Louisa. She said, The Venue, a wedding novel by TJ Payne. It's a short read and really entertaining. I got this recommendation from Ashley's Little Library, which is also very exciting that this recommendation came from Ashley's Little Library, because I feel like me and Ashley do typically read a lot of the same books, and for the most part we do have a lot of the same opinions when it comes to books, and so I'm really excited to read it for those reasons. I do think this one is actually a little bit more of a horror book as opposed to a thriller book, just in terms of like the genre and what my expectations are, but I'm gonna be reading it for this vlog anyways. This is also one that I really don't know what to expect, but it says we're following this woman named Amy who she gets invited to this guy Caleb's wedding, and I'm guessing that Caleb is her ex, and it says now she doesn't expect to get out alive. It sounds like it's gonna be some like crazy murder shenanigans, like Ready or Not vibes. So yeah, these are the 4 books that I'm gonna be reading for this video. I am very excited to read another round of your thriller recommendations. So let me send you back to about a week ago when I started The Venue. I actually read this book while I was in Japan. How crazy. Let me send you back to when I started this one. I'm home from Japan and I ended up reading The Venue by TJ Payne in its entirety while I was on my trip in Japan. And I was going to update you at different times, but I never found the right time to update this because I was reading this book in between traveling. So I was like reading this at the airport, I was reading this at like coffee shops in Japan, I was reading this anytime that I had a spare minute. This one definitely has all of the like rich people murder vibes, you know, because we're following this couple, like there's this couple getting married and the guy's name is Caleb and he has this ex-girlfriend named Amy who he's like weirdly still obsessed with her, and so he invites Amy and like her whole family to come to his wedding, that Caleb's having this wedding with this woman named Lilith. And then it's basically like at this wedding venue, it's like these people can invite anyone that they want to this wedding venue, and then basically everyone's gonna be like fighting for their lives, and it's gonna be like a huge like murder fest and like a bloodbath. And like I don't want to give too much away as far as the plot goes because that's all it really tells you on the back of this book, and this one is pretty short because it's only about 290 pages, but I feel like this book really is as straightforward as you think that it will be, you know, like it's a very simplistic writing style. It's very like kind of camp and kind of like intentionally over the top, I think, and kind of ridiculous. I think for me, this book has a really interesting concept, you know, like I like the idea of inviting people to this like mysterious kind of creepy wedding and then just kind of being like not sure really what's going on, and then all of a sudden they all feel like they're fighting for their lives. It definitely reminds me of the vibes of like Ready or Not. But I also felt like for me, the stakes just never felt that high because I didn't personally care about any of the characters, and I don't think you necessarily need to care about any of the characters, but it was just like, I guess the reasoning behind why Caleb had like ill will towards Amy, I just thought it was a little bit weak and just kind of ridiculous, and for him to kind of want to have this like awful revenge fantasy against her, I just would have wanted there to be more of a reason. But like maybe that's the point, is that most oftentimes men don't even have a good reason for their like violent wishes towards a lot of the women in their lives, and like maybe I'm just reading too much into something that's just supposed to be like a fun and silly time. But this was definitely, you know, like entertaining. It was gory, it was written in a way that was so like there were so many scenes that were written in such gory detail with like the blood and the guts and the like, things that were happening that I was like, ugh. And I don't know if it was just because I was traveling, so I was already a little bit nauseous, but it was definitely making me feel more nauseous, so it definitely did what it came to do, if that's what it came to do. I think I'm probably gonna end up giving this one 3 stars because it's not like I didn't like it, because it was entertaining enough and it was interesting and I was really curious to see where the story was gonna go. So it had that readability where I just wanted to keep reading it. But at the same time, I also feel like the story never really went to like places where I thought it could go. I never really cared as much as I wanted to, and I also feel like the ending felt a little bit just like anticlimactic to me. Like, I don't know, I think I just expected a little bit more from this one. But I mean, overall, this was still a really interesting read. It wasn't like the best written book that I've ever read, but I think as a concept, it's pretty fun and it's pretty interesting and entertaining. I think if it sounds at all fun to you to read about, you know, wedding guests showing up at a wedding and not really knowing what they're getting themselves into and then ending up fighting for their lives, I think if the thought of that intrigues you, then I think you would have a fun time with this book, as long as you go in with some, like, you know, lower expectations. Oh, hello! So it has been a little while. I have started on The Girls Are All So Nice Here. This is going to be the next book that I'm reading for this video, and I'm doing Patreon reading sprints right now, and I've made it up to chapter 18, which puts me at about like 123 pages into this book. And this is one that I am just jumping into knowing absolutely nothing. I know the title is like The Girls Are All So Nice Here, but it's kind of a lie because the girls are all very toxic and mean girls, and they're awful. And so I can kind of see why I think this one's getting a little bit of lower reviews, and I think it's because this is one of those thrillers that, at least for me, it's starting like with such a slow burn, you know, because I'm kind of like, okay, like where are the thrills? Like, it's alluding to a lot of things, but there hasn't really been anything thrilling happening, at least not really like on page thrills. But I kind of do like the way that this book is written, where we're going back and forth between, you know, the present day and the past. And so we are getting like the past chapters of when these girls were actually in college, and we kind of get to see the drama that was happening in their friendship group. And then we also get present day chapters that take place 10 years later when they're at this college reunion and they're all seeing each other again for the first time. And in those present day chapters, you kind of get those, you know, comments that are like, well, they couldn't show up to this reunion because of what I did. And like, it's kind of alluding to a lot of things that might have happened back then, but we're just kind of following the story back then in a very linear format where it's like it might be leading up to something that happened. And you know, yeah, so far this book is a lot of just, you know, relationship drama. It's a lot of like these girls like sleeping with the same guys and hooking up with the same guys and getting jealous of each other. And I don't know, I feel like it's written in a way though where it's pretty interesting to me so far. I like the way that the female characters are written. I feel like most of them, they're written in a way where like they feel really smart and they feel like they're like playing games with these guys, and it's just kind of like funny and like entertaining to read. And I don't know, I feel like it doesn't really read much like a thriller to me so far, but at the same time I do feel invested in like the characters and like where the story's going. I feel like this almost does remind me of that book In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, you know, it by Ashley Winstead. It does have the similar kind of like college romance thrillery kind of vibe to it, even though so far I definitely prefer In My Dreams I Hold a Knife just as like a direct comparison. But I do think this one has potential. I'm definitely intrigued by where this is going. And yeah, even though most of the story has just been like toxic female friendships so far, I am intrigued because I do like reading about like mean girls, and I do like reading about like toxic female friendships. I just find it to be so fascinating and so interesting, and so I'm enjoying it so far. I'm still doing reading sprints on Patreon right now. I'm doing my last sprint right now and I'm doing about an hour, but I do think I could realistically try and finish this book today. It is the next day. Last night I got about, I want to say I got about 80% of the way through the book last night. And then me and my sister, we just made some pizzas for dinner. We ended up watching so many episodes of Big Brother because we're currently catching up on the new season of Big Brother. But then we also ended up watching the VMAs last night, which was really fun because I got to watch my girl, Taylor Swift, completely slay at the VMAs. Like, she's tied now, I think, for the most VMA wins of all time. So anyways, just another day of watching Taylor Swift take over world domination. I love to see it. It's amazing. But I wanted to let you know that this morning, just after waking up, I finished reading the last, I only had maybe 50 pages left of The Girls Are All So Nice Here. And this is a book that I feel like I have mixed feelings about. Probably gonna end up giving this around like a 3.5 stars. I really do feel like it's difficult for me to want to call this book a thriller just because the pacing of this book is very slow. Most of this book is just a lot of, romantic relationship drama between these girls in college, and I really don't feel like a lot of the thriller elements are even introduced into this book until a little bit later on, and some of them were quite obvious, because there was something that was revealed, I want to say between 150 to 170 pages in, and then it was oh, okay, is that supposed to be a twist? Because I thought that was pretty obvious. I thought that that's the direction the book was going in. But then, I don't know, the story does get a little bit interesting later on, and there's more elements revealed later on in the book that I thought were kind of interesting. And overall, I really did like the writing style in this book, and I really do love reading about complicated, kind of toxic female friendships. I personally find that to be very interesting, and so I do feel like this was a book that was more catered to my taste with what I usually like in thrillers. I mean, yeah, I could have done with a little bit less of the relationship drama and the romance and all that, but at the same time I didn't mind it. It did kind of remind me of In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, but I didn't quite enjoy this one as much as that one because I do feel like In My Dreams I Hold a Knife had quite a bit more thriller elements, whereas this one just kind of felt more like a romantic drama at times. For me personally, the thriller aspects of this book were kind of weak. I just wanted more from them because I do think it was kind of predictable, the direction of where the story was going, and I just wanted there to be a few more things that shocked me in this book, and I never really got that from this, so that's kind of why my rating is a little bit lower. But I mean, with all of that being said, I do think that I would read from this author again because I do like the way that she writes her books. I like the way that she writes the characters. I thought, most of the female characters in this book, I thought they were written in a way that was very interesting and it kept me engaged the whole time. I just really love these kind of thriller books that are set, on a college campus and that follow a group of girls that are kind of questionable and toxic. I just think that's one of my favorite kind of tropes in thrillers. I guess that would be a trope. I don't know. I love reading about toxic girls on a college campus. I think that's one of my favorite things in thrillers. I had a good time with this. I don't think everyone will though, and I can see why this book is getting lower reviews. I totally understand why. But anyways, it's a new day. I have a video or possibly 2 videos I need to start filming today. I am starting to feel a little bit better today. Ever since getting back from my Japan trip, I've been feeling pretty sick, but I don't know, today is the first day that I feel like I can breathe through my nose again, so I feel like that's a good thing. Hi, how's it going? It's a little bit later in the night now. It's about 9 o'clock, but I wanted to update you because I have gotten the chance to start on the next book, which is going to be Blood Sugar. Earlier tonight, I was making dinner. I started reading the book right before dinner, and then while I was making dinner, I was, talking on the phone with my friend Katie, and I ended up cutting my thumb while I was making dinner. How annoying is that? It's a cut perfectly across the top of my thumb, and it was just so annoying because it was just taking forever to stop bleeding, and I was like, what the? And usually I'm the kind of person who will pass the fuck out when I see my own blood, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like luckily nothing happened and I was fine actually. It didn't even really hurt, but I was just like, oh my god, like how annoying. But anyways, then after that, me and my sister watched the newest episode of Big Brother. They had a 2-hour episode tonight, which was pretty cool. And yeah, Blood Sugar, I've been listening to this book for a couple of hours now, you know, shortly after finishing Big Brother, which was around like 7 o'clock we finished watching it. I think it actually aired last night and we were just catching up. I've just been sitting here in the office making some thumbnails and I've just been listening to this on audio. And so now I am 188 pages into the book. I'm actually just a little bit more than halfway through the audiobook now. And I am really enjoying this one. This one, something that intrigued me a lot about this is that the blurb on the top right here, it just says she's accused of 4 murders, but she's only guilty of 3. And it's like, wait, what? Like, so we're following someone who's a murderer. And in this story, we're following this character named Ruby. I think something that's interesting is the story starts off with this scene when she's a young girl and she's like in the ocean. And it's this really intense scene basically where when she was a young girl, she had held this boy like underwater in the ocean until he died. And it's interesting because you get to know right away that like, yeah, she's a murderer, but she's like not a sociopath because she like has a lot of feelings. And this protagonist, Ruby, she's actually a therapist herself. And right at the start of this book, she's getting called into the police station because she's being accused of murdering her own husband. And they're saying like some things just can't be a coincidence. Like it's so weird that these people keep dying around you. But she is pretty adamant about the fact that she did not kill her husband, which I think is the 4th murder that she's being accused of, and she's only guilty of 3. But I don't know, so far it's been really interesting. I really do like the writing in this thriller. I don't know if I would necessarily consider this book to be like super action-packed or super thrilling because it's not really that thrilling. It's honestly more of this like slow burn kind of character study, which is something that I've heard from a lot of my friends who have read this book and really loved it. They always like let me know, they were like, just so you know, it's kind of slow, it's more of a character study, which I totally agree. But I do think it's a very interesting character study about this girl Ruby. Like I'm really invested in her story. I like that right now in the book we're doing a lot of like flashback scenes to when she met this guy Jason that, you know, went on to be her husband who they think that she murdered. But I really like the chemistry between her and Jason. And Jason's character is diabetic, and I don't know if that's why the book is called Blood Sugar. Like, I don't know if that's like related, but he is diabetic. And I've heard from some of my friends, like my friend Katie said that the representation of diabetes in this book is really well done. And so that's always good to see. But I am really liking the way that this book is written, and I don't really mind so much that it's a slow burn because I'm really invested in this character. And I like she's very like witty and like funny. And I don't know, she just kind of reminds me of some of those like classic characters like Dexter or something, where like she very obviously knows the difference between right and wrong, and like she's not a sociopath, but she is a murderer and she does want to like take things into her own hands. And so yeah, so far it's going well. I don't know if I'm going to be reading any more tonight, so I might have to wait until tomorrow to pick it back up, but I will update you once I'm finished. It's the next afternoon and I wanted to update you because I have just finished listening to Blood Sugar on audio. I've had a pretty chill, you know, Friday afternoon this afternoon. I've just been working on a few different videos. I had to finish editing this one video that I was working on, and then as soon as I was done, I just came back laid in bed and popped in this audiobook, and I really enjoyed the last little bit of this book. I especially loved the way that this book ended. It just reminded me of like a few other thrillers that I've really loved over the years that have that kind of like good for her energy to them. I feel like this is a thriller that's probably not gonna work for everyone because there's not a lot of action happening on page in this book, and it's definitely more of a slow burn character study kind of story. but I feel like this character, Ruby, our protagonist in this book, I feel like she's such an interesting character to follow, and she's one of those people where like you don't know if you want to like root for her or not because you know that she's like a murderer, but I think it's so funny that like the one murder that she's being accused of is like the only one that she didn't actually commit, you know, like her husband who had died. It's just so funny because she's killed 3 people up to this point, and now this 4th person is the one that she's being accused of the murder for, and she didn't actually do it. But it was just so well written and it was intriguing, and I liked the way that the story was written because I liked how it would be told through like flashbacks of like when she had met her husband and then the present day. I also just liked a lot of the conversations in this book about therapy, you know, because she's a therapist, and so she also goes to therapy herself as well, and so I liked all the conversations that were about that as well. I love one of the quotes on the back of this book that I really agree with is when it says, "This is an exceptionally smart thriller that will convince you that not every cold-blooded killer is a villain." And I feel like that's so true, you know, because she's not exactly a villain even though she's a murderer. She's like one of those like morally gray characters, you know, kind of like Dexter, which honestly, like those characters tend to be some of my favorites to read. Like I just find them to be so interesting and so entertaining. I love this other blurb too on the bottom that says, "Never before have I cared so much for such an untrustworthy character." I also would agree with that. Again, I feel like this is a thriller that's only really gonna work if you're interested in the protagonist because it's just so much of like her life and her story and like what's going on with her. So I feel like if you didn't care too much about her as a protagonist, then the story might not interest you as much. And yeah, I'm so glad that I love this, you know, because I've had this book sitting on my shelf for a little while now and I've just been so obsessed with this cover. I'm glad to know that this was a solid thriller recommendation, so thank you. I'm excited because in about 20 minutes or so, my parents are gonna come pick me up and we're gonna go out to dinner. I haven't really had time ever since coming home from Japan to like actually hang out with my parents because I haven't really been feeling that well like the last week or so, but it's been about a week now since I've been home. I'm feeling so much better today. Like today is the day that I'm feeling as close to 100% as I've felt in a long time. How's it going? Happy Saturday! Today I have decided to come down to the local park just because I kind of wanted to, you know, get out of the house and like do some reading in the park. It doesn't actually look like it's too crowded over here. Like I really thought today was gonna be super crowded because it's a Saturday and it's like a really nice day out, but it's actually like pretty smoky here in Washington today, so I'm like maybe that's why nobody's here, because nobody wants to sit outside in the smoke. But I have started on the last thriller that I'm gonna be reading for this video, which is How I'll Kill You, and I've just been listening to this one on audio this morning and I got about 95 pages in so far, and this one is really interesting so far because we are following these 3 sisters who are all triplets, and they were kind of like raised in the foster care system and they've never really had like a stable home growing up, and these sisters have all been known to kill their boyfriends. Like they kind of have this like little family tradition that they like get these guys to fall in love with them and then they kill them, and the sister that we're following, she has a nickname that is called, you know, they call her Sissy, which like I don't love that. I don't know why the nickname Sissy just like bothers me so much. I just think it's so like childish and annoying. But anyways, the protagonist that we're following, her name is Sissy, and she's mainly been the one to do like the cleanups of the murders. Like she hasn't really had any murders herself yet. She's just been part of the process of like helping her sister with their victims. And so now the sisters are wanting her to like have her first victim. And so she ends up with this guy named Edison, who's like a young widower, and she's starting to get to know him and she's actually starting to fall in love with him, which is a problem, right? You know, because he's supposed to be her first victim and she's like already planning out how she's gonna kill him and all these things. But now all of a sudden she's starting to fall in love with him. She's starting to get kind of, you know, protective of him. And the other sisters are kind of like, what are we doing? Like, what do you think you're doing? And so it's kind of interesting so far. I don't know, I'm about 90, you know, pages in, like I said, and I'm just getting to the point now where she's starting to realize that she might be having feelings for this guy. And and that it might not be so easy for her to kill him. But so far, I think this book is okay. I don't mind the writing. I think the writing is like, it's really easy to get into. It's really readable. I kind of like the relationship that the sisters have, and I don't know, I like the idea of following like 3 sisters who all murder their boyfriends. I think that's a super fun premise. I'm so excited because later tonight, Rachel and Obed are going to the Mariners game in Seattle because the Mariners are going to be playing the Dodgers tonight, which, like, you know, me and my family, we're all big Dodgers fans, you know, because we're originally from LA. So like anytime the Dodgers are in town, it's like so sick because they never come to Seattle. Like the Dodgers are never in Seattle. So it's pretty cool that Rachel and Obed are going to be going to the Dodgers and the Mariners game tonight. But I'm excited about it because then that means that I'm going to get the apartment to myself. And like, I'm so excited about that. I'm going to be having a Patreon movie night tonight actually for the movie Crimson Peak. And I'm excited to see it because I've actually never seen the movie Crimson Peak. And so I think it'll be a really fun time. And so hopefully sometime in between now and the end of the night, maybe I can even finish this one because I'm already like 90 pages in and this one's not too long. It's only about 330 pages. So who knows what could happen. I did end up bringing one of my white pineapple monsters to the park with me because I was gonna like try to get a coffee or something on the way, but then I was like, okay, maybe I like shouldn't be spending a lot of money on iced coffee right now, especially because my throat has still been a little bit like hit or miss ever since I was sick. So like I'm not trying to like trigger my acid reflux like super bad. So I'm gonna try some of this instead and see if my throat reacts really badly to it. I probably won't have too much of this, but I'm gonna take the risk because I really just want a white pineapple monster today. It's been so long. I just got home from the park and it was pretty smoky outside today. Like, I don't know if you could tell from my clips. They looked like they were like cast in like an orange or yellow glow. I don't know, everything just looked a little smoky outside today, but I couldn't really tell just like breathing the air outside. Like, it doesn't smell like it's as smoky as it has been, but like just looking out at the sky, I was like, oh my gosh, like, it just looks so smoky today. But while sitting at the park, I got all the way up to chapter 22, which puts me at about 225 pages in. And I'm so excited to let you know that I've actually really been enjoying this one. I've had a lot of fun with this. You know, I didn't realize when I started this, but I think the premise of this, it actually reminds me a lot of the book Brother by Anya Alborn, which is like one of my favorite horror books. And I realized it reminds me a lot of Brother because in both Brother and in this story, we're following basically like a bunch of family members who all killed people together, and then we follow a protagonist who's like falling in love with the person that they're supposed to kill. You know, because the book Brother, his whole family is a bunch of serial killers, like all of his family is, and then he starts to fall for this girl that he's like supposed to kill. And so this premise totally reminds me of that book where, you know, we have these sisters who like they all kill their boyfriends together, and then her first victim that she's supposed to kill, she's like falling in love with. For me, this book started a little bit slow. Like, I feel like this book didn't really kick off for me until like over 100 pages in, or maybe even 150 pages in. Like, it took some time for it to really get interesting for me, because I feel like the beginning of this book was a lot of just like setting up their romantic relationship, you know, and like getting you invested in the characters, setting up this romance that this author wants you to buy into. And I've got to say, I've been buying into the romance. Like, I've actually really been enjoying the romantic elements of this book, which I wasn't expecting. You know, her love interest, his name is Edison, and you know, he's a widow, and he just has all of these things going on in his life, and I just think he's a really interesting character. I also really like the name Edison. Like, the more I keep hearing it, I'm like, that is such a cool name. I don't know if I've ever heard of a character named Edison before. I also love the name Jade. Oh my gosh, our protagonist, when they're not calling her Sissy, you know, like the annoying nickname that I just absolutely hate, her name is Jade, which I think is also just a really badass name for a girl. I love the name Jade. You know, it was a little bit slow at the start. It took some time for it to pick up, but after it did pick up, there's been a little bit of like twists and turns along the way, like little things that I haven't seen coming. I feel like an idiot that I didn't see this one twist coming. I feel like it's used all the time in thrillers, and for some reason I still get surprised by it. I'm always like, oh shit, like I don't know, I didn't see it going that way, so now I'm even more invested in where it's going. I also like learning a little bit more about Edison's character, and he seems to have some, you know, secrets of his own, or like things that we don't know about his life that are also very interesting and keeping me, you know, interested. There was one thing that just happened to where I'm at right now in the story, and that was also like kind of shocking. Like, there are just some things going on that I'm like, ooh. But anyways, it's about 3:30 in the afternoon right now. I think the plan for right now is to just chill on the couch and try to finish this book before I have to figure out dinner. Rachel and Obed have left the apartment. They are in Seattle for the rest of the night, so I get the place to myself, which I'm so excited about. I don't really know what my plan is for dinner yet. I do have my Patreon movie night at 6 tonight, so that's in like a few hours. I would like to eat dinner before the movie night. Really tempted, like I want to try this local Asian restaurant that my dad keeps talking about. He tried it for the first time last month and he said it was actually really good, and I haven't tried it yet. And like ever since coming home, you know, from Japan, I've just been craving Asian food like every single day. And so I thought tonight might be the perfect opportunity to go ahead and try it. I mean, the only reason why I haven't tried this place yet is because their hours are kind of like strange and all over the place, and I never really know when they're open. So like they're never the most like convenient place to go, I guess, timing wise. But I do think that they open at like 5 o'clock tonight. Yeah, I'm so excited to finish this one. I'm so glad that I'm enjoying it, and hopefully the rest of it goes well. Hello, it's been a couple of hours. It's about 8:30 at night right now, and I just finished wrapping up my Crimson Peak movie night with my Patreon. I also went out to dinner. I did end up trying the new like Asian local spot that I haven't been to yet, and it was freaking delicious. I just got like chicken teriyaki and I got some gyozas, and they were so good. They weren't quite as good as the ones that I had in Japan. They definitely tasted quite a bit more like Americanized, but they were good. And then right after I finished eating, we started the movie night for Crimson Peak, and Crimson Peak was interesting. I'm not a huge fan of like period movies, like, you know, like movies that feel very like historical and like that kind of vibe. So like it wasn't exactly like my kind of horror movie, but I still really liked it. I thought it had really good atmosphere. There was some twists in the story that I didn't see coming, and I feel like the set design and like the costumes were just absolutely incredible. Like, you know, I definitely get the hype with this movie. It's just not really my kind of movie, but it was still a fun time. I had a really fun time watching it with everyone on my Patreon. I always do. I always think it's so much more fun to watch movies with like a huge group of people. But anyways, I did want to let you know that I was able to finish How I'll Kill You earlier this afternoon, and I do think I'm probably going to give this one 4 stars. I feel right giving this book 4 stars because the ending wasn't like super like chaotic and crazy like I was thinking it could be. Like I was thinking it could go in all these different directions, and I thought the ending was just okay. But I still think this was a super fun time. I feel like this is a book that is very easy to get through within one day. The audiobook is only 10 hours long, and I thought the audiobook was really well done and really engaging, so I highly would recommend checking out the audiobook. Really invested in these characters. I was kind of invested in like the relationship that this character had with her sister and how she would go through these phases where like she didn't know if she could trust her own sisters because she didn't know if her sisters had her best interest at heart, or she didn't know if her sisters cared more about like trying to protect themselves with like killing their boyfriends and stuff like that, you know? So I thought that was a really interesting relationship to read about. And then I actually did really like the romance that was happening in this book between our protagonist and then this guy Edison. I just thought they had good chemistry, and like I liked the way that he was written as a character. I thought he was really interesting. I also liked getting to know more about his character, and like as we learn more things about his character, it just made me care even more about their situation, which I wasn't expecting to care, you know, because like I think thrillers are perfectly fine when you like don't really give a fuck about any of the characters, because that's not usually what I read the thrillers for, you know, like usually I just read thrillers for a fun time and like to be entertained. But that's why I'm glad, because this book kind of did have it all, you know, because I was thrilled and I was entertained and there were plot twists that I didn't see coming, and I also happened to give a fuck about the characters and the romance. So like it just checks a lot of boxes for me. So yeah, this one was a 4-star. I had a great time with it, and I'm so glad that I'm ending this vlog on a great note. I think it's really cool though that during this vlog I never had anything lower than like a 3-star. Like I pretty much enjoyed everything that I read, even though I didn't necessarily find like a new all-time favorite of mine. I definitely found some books that I thought were really fun and really interesting, and I found some new thrillers that I can recommend now thanks to y'all. So thank you so much for all of these recommendations. I would love to know your thoughts on any of these thriller books. If you've read any of these thriller books, please let me know what you think of them. And yeah, thank you so much for watching as always, and I will see you very soon with another video. Bye.